Hello and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some thrift flip DIYs that I created for fall decor. Here we go. Hello you all, I hope you're doing well. I am back in my craft room. If you've followed me on my other channels, you know that I wasn't using this room for about a year and a half. My oldest child had moved home, but now she's out into her own apartment and have my craft room back. So that's super exciting. I'm really thrilled to be participating in today's video. It is part of a collaboration with the crafting cousins, Trish and Kay. If you haven't had a chance to check out their channel, you should go ahead and check it out. I'll link it in my description box. Today's collaboration is called the Thrift Flip Road Trip, and there's a bunch of creators from around the USA. So when you're done watching my video, I would love it if you'd go ahead and hit that playlist link and watch the videos from the other creators. You'll get lots of inspiration. We did have one challenge for today. We had to make something using blue and something using fabric. So for my challenge project, I used blue fabric, and then I have some other DIYs to share with you as well. So let's get into the thrift flip DIYs. My first project was inspired by something I saw on a blog called Sunnyside Design. Hers was slightly different. She used a child's plastic trick-or-treating pumpkin. I'm going to use this pumpkin that I've previously painted. It's one of those foam ones from the Dollar Tree. I'm also using an old pair of jeans. They are washed, but I got them at the Goodwill outlet bins where you shop by the pound. So the first thing I did was to put my pumpkin on the leg of the denim jeans and just kind of wrapped it to see how long of a strip I would need to go all the way around my pumpkin. And again, if you were using a larger pumpkin, you could do this obviously with a larger pumpkin as well. The next step was to cut that leg of the jeans into several strips to be able to wrap them around the pumpkin. I had planned to use my rotary cutter with my mat, but I couldn't find my large mat, and that was a problem. So I did wind up switching to scissors, but you can see here I'm just cutting the trim off the bottom of the jeans leg first, and I set that aside because I do use that later. And then I cut the fabric from the leg of the jeans into strips, and each strip was about 1.5 inches wide. I used my mat to measure, but I did see here use my scissor to do the actual cutting because I just couldn't do it with the little mat. It was giving me problems. Scissors for the win. And then it's a super easy project. All you do is you put a little bit of glue at that top hole. Now, I would recommend, if you decide to try this, making the top hole of the pumpkin a little bit larger, because you can see later, I actually couldn't fit my stem in the hole once all of the denim was glued. So make that hole a little bit bigger. Don't make the same mistake I did. It was useful to have this little silicone finger from the Dollar Tree that protected my finger because it is very hot with the fabric and the hot glue. So make sure if you try this, you don't burn yourself. So I just went around the entire pumpkin, attaching, just wrapping the strips of denim from one side of the pumpkin all the way underneath, and then up and into the hole from the other side. So here's where you can see there's really no hole left. I even had to use my scissors to get the last little bit of fabric to go down at all. So that's why I would recommend a bigger hole, but here it is all covered in denim. Now the original project used these strips from the edge of the jeans, like the seam from the edge, as an embellishment. When I was first making my pumpkin, I didn't attach these. You'll see I kind of throw in the towel on that. But I did come back the next morning. I was like, I really like that added detail. So I did go back and use these as an embellishment on my finished pumpkin. I grabbed these twirly twine embellishments from my stash. They're originally from Walmart a few years ago. If you didn't have this, you could use jute, the wired jute cord from the Dollar Tree, or just some regular twine. So I just used my wire cutter to cut off some of the little curly cues, and then I attached them along with the wine cork as a stem. I decided I also wanted to use some leaves, but I didn't want these to look so much like maple leaves. They're the little burlap leaves from the Dollar Tree, so I just kind of trimmed them up. I think I also have an oak leaf that I also trimmed up just to disguise it a little bit. And then I attached all of the embellishments to the top of my pumpkin using hot glue. And here's this little cutie pumpkin. I really like this. I could foresee myself making some more of these with maybe some darker or different shades of denim. I think that would be really cute. Maybe some different sizes. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. For this next DIY thrift flip, I'm going to be starting with this bushel basket. I don't remember where I found this. I've had it in my stash a while. And then I also have this vintage spool. I'm going to be taking the thread off of that, but that will also be used in this project. I also use some other things, but I kind of build as I go when I craft, so I wasn't sure what I was going to be using when I started. So this project was inspired by something I saw out at an antique and vintage shop last year. And then I also saw that Heidi Sonbol made something similar a few weeks back, which was funny. So I first went ahead and removed the handle from this bushel basket, and, you know, had to be careful doing this. Anytime you're deconstructing an item, you should just be a little bit careful. So I kind of used some tools in ways they weren't meant to be used, but I just needed to pry off the little staple and nail. It's actually like a nail that was holding the handle on. And once I had the handle removed from both sides, then the next step was to paint it. I had wiped this down. I didn't take footage of that, but always important when you're doing thrift flips, always important to have clean items. And then I needed to remove the sticker from the bottom. I used this handy dandy little razor blade. It's actually like a plastic razor blade. Super useful if you're afraid of using like regular metal razor blades. This is a way to get similar effectiveness without the danger of cutting yourself. Once the sticker was all off, I just used my sanding block just to get off any sticky residue that was left behind. And then I used some acrylic paint to paint my pumpkin. I did mix a few colors because the orange that I had was just a little brighter than I wanted it to be. So I added in like a little bit of a reddish brownish color, and that toned down the orange a little bit. I always like to share this trick. I got the idea from Ginger Chick Rehab. I use this old Lazy Susan when I'm painting. It makes it much easier to turn the project and get to the different sides. And then here I'm just showing you that I did wind up using this brush to get into the crevices of my bushel basket. So the foam brush for the larger surfaces, and then the brush to get into the little crevices. Just a little tip if you decide to try this yourself. And then I took my little bottle of white wax as well as a rag and some water, and I just applied a very light, not super full coat of white wax to the paint. And I was just trying to give it like almost like a dry brush technique without it looking so much like it was paint. I just kind of wanted it to look like, you know, pumpkins have different shades and darknesses and lights, and I was just trying to give it a little more depth to my paint job. And the process I use to apply wax is I just use kind of a dampened rag to apply wax, and then I use my rag to wipe some of the wax off until it achieves the desired effect that I'm going for. So here's what it looked like after my white wax was applied. And then it was time to create the stem. I used my scissor to remove the old thread from the spool, and then I wrapped the spool in twine. I started at the bottom of the spool with a little bit of hot glue, and it's not necessary to glue all of the twine on. You kind of just have to get a good start. So I got it attached really well at the bottom, and also on the kind of sloped part of the spool, I had to use a little bit more glue. But then you can see as I went, I was really just wrapping it until I got to the end, and then I glued it again on the other sloped part of the spool. Here is what my spool looks like all wrapped in twine, and then I used my hot glue to attach it to the top of the bushel basket. I pulled another leaf from my stash, and again, it's another Dollar Tree leaf. And then I also pulled this little tag from my stash, as well as this wooden word that says fall. I think that originally came from Target, probably last year, but I just wanted to create some little embellishments for the top of my pumpkin. So a super easy craft, but here it is all finished up. I love this thing. And while I think it looks cute on that basket, we do store blankets in there, so I'm trying to keep it kind of clear of decor, except for that little throw blanket. So I decided I'm going to use this pumpkin down in front of my fireplace, kind of on the hearth area. For my next thrift flip DIY for fall, I'm going to be upcycling this metal bird cage. I found this at the Goodwill outlet bins probably about a year ago, and I'm just getting around to flipping it. It did get a little bent in the bins, but that's okay. I'm going to be taking care of that and you won't notice it at all. I did a bit of mixing for my paint color. I wanted to get like a tannish, minerally kind of color. I don't have the stash of chalk paints that a lot of DIYers do, so I was just using some of the acrylic paints that I have, and I just kept adding color until I came up with something that I liked, and I actually really liked it in the end. And then I gave the birdcage 2 coats of the paint that I had mixed up. I did have to wait in between coats. It was metal, so it took a little bit longer to dry, but I did feel like I got good coverage. And then not on the video, I did give it a top coat using this Mod Podge top coat, which I'll show you in a second. I will tell you, I don't love that top coat, but I have it and I'm going to use it up and then I probably won't buy it again. And then I attached a piece of styrofoam floral foam into the center of the birdcage with hot glue. I used hot glue because just in case I change my mind at some point and want to reuse the birdcage for something else, the hot glue will enable me to still be able to take the foam off. And then I had a bunch of florals, and you'll see as I go here, I kind of had a few different iterations of the floral arranging. It's hard to get good footage of that piece of the process, but basically you just kind of have to style the flowers until you like the way that they look. And my intention was to wrap the bottom of the styrofoam with raffia, but apparently I ran out of raffia, so I need to get more. But I improvised with this boxwood. I just had some little boxwood sprigs in my stash, and I just kind of stuck those into the arrangement where the styrofoam was still showing, and it did the same job as the raffia did, and actually wound up looking really nice, so I was pleased with that. It was a happy accident. And here's what it looked like with the floral arrangement. And then I really wanted to add a little bow to the top, just a little extra pop. I could definitely have left it like this, and if you're not into bows, this would be a fine stopping point. But I decided to put a little orange bow on top just to tie in. I'm doing a lot of oranges and blues with like pops of sunflower in my fall decor. So I just got this big roll of ribbon that I've picked up at the Dollar Tree this year and made a big bow. Fortunately, I'm pretty good at tying bows, but if you're not good at tying bows, there's lots of ways to get around that process and lots of videos on YouTube about how to make different kinds of bows. But I just tied a simple, I call it a shoelace bow, and then I snipped the ends by folding them in half just to make them look finished. And then I had this little blackboard tag in my stash, and I got my white chalk marker, and I just wanted to write a little tag on it that says a season for everything. If you follow me on any of my other channels, I do have a vlog channel, and I've mentioned that 3 of my children recently moved away or to college and 1 out. And so I feel like I'm in a season of change, and so that verse has really been kind of getting me through. So I wanted to write up a tag to just remind myself that there's a season for everything, and this is just a season of change. So anyway, that's what I did on my little tag, and then I attached it with hot glue. And here it is all complete. This is not where it's going in my home. It's actually going to be down on my landing, but my landing was not camera ready when I filmed this. So I just filmed it here, but I'll be using this down at the entry of my home. For my next thrift flip DIY project for fall, I had this little crate, and I think I got this at Target several years ago now. And I'm also using some paint stirring sticks and some paint from my stash. This is based on a sign that I saw. I really like the sign, but I thought I could make a very similar looking thing on this crate, and then it would be useful, more useful than a sign. I could actually use it. I'm actually probably going to use what I make here to hold napkins on my kitchen island. That's what I'm thinking for this. Anyway, so I needed a nice shade of gold and then also a shade of white, but I wanted to do like a little bit of an off-white and then some orange. So I just mixed up some paints like I did in the other projects until I saw the shades that I wanted. And then I painted up the sides of my crate. And then I used a little bit of brown paint to paint up the ends of these stir sticks. These are going to act as pumpkin stems. And then I used my little battery operated Black & Decker sander to sand some of the paint off, because in the inspiration piece, it was more of a primitive rustic look. So I wanted to take a bit of the paint off. And then here's what it looked like all sanded up. I really liked the way that it looked. And I just used my paint markers to write, "Gather together, give thanks, eat pie." And that's what I saw on the sign. I just thought that was so cute and kind of different. I do have a vinyl cutting machine. I have a Cricut, but to be honest with you, on some projects, it's just easier just to write it. I have decent handwriting, and I think it's nice for my family to have things that I hand wrote. So you could definitely use a Cricut if you have it and want to do that, but it was just easier for me to use the paint pens. And I made this a two-sided basket, so it says the same thing on both sides. And I used my little clipper to cut off the ends of the paint stirrer sticks so that I could use those as stems for my little basket. And I did dry brush just a little white paint on both sides of the stems so that it just wouldn't look so just brown. And then I attached the stems to the basket using hot glue. And then I made an embellishment for the both sides of the pumpkin using this wired jute cord from the Dollar Tree. I just wrapped it around a pen and used my wire cutter to snip it, and that created little curly cues like you would find on a pumpkin. And then I also used a little bit of burlap ribbon, and I attached it all to the tops of the pumpkin stems using hot glue. Here it is all embellished. I think this turned out really cute. I have it styled here with the other crafts, but it's not going to stay here. Like I said, it will probably be on my kitchen island holding napkins. All that I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed these thrift flip DIY projects for fall. I hope maybe you've gotten some good ideas. I'd love it if you'd check the thrift flip road trip playlist linked in my description box below. And don't forget to check out the crafting cousins. Tell them I sent you. And until my next video, thanks for watching.